Prasad Rao sir is the founder and chairman of the Paramita Group of Schools in Telangana. Sir firmly believes that it is not the economic conditions or the socio-cultural aspects, but the right exposure to a holistic education coupled with mentoring that affects cognitive development that bring about changes in a child. Hence, he has always been emphasizing on exploring and experimenting various pedagogical processes to enable learner-centric classrooms. He has a long list of achievements to his credit, and I would just list a few here. He is an active academic advisor for Telangana Recognized Schools Management Association, that is TRSMA. He has been working very closely in curriculum development for the last 2 decades with various educational organizations. He also was a part of a delegation to attend international educational summits and conferences at Dubai in 2019 and in Sri Lanka in 2018. He has interacted with over 8,000 plus teachers pan-India. He has worked with 2,000 plus teachers and conducted various professional developmental programs for teachers as well as principals for more than 2 decades across Andhra Pradesh and few other states in the country. As the chairperson of the Paramita schools in Telangana, he has been on the Paramita Times magazine as an editor and is constantly bringing about various experimentations to see to it that the learning teaching experience for the child becomes more and more evolved. Thank you, sir, for being a part of our webinar today, and we would be very, very happy to hear you on the topic for today, that is pre and post mindset with evolved teaching and learning trends. For those of who wish to attend, we have in the second room, we have Dr. Vandana Lulla, Director of Podar Group of Schools, who will be speaking to us on tech evolution. And the link for this will be provided on your chat. Thank you.
Welcome all the participants, educationists, teachers, and CGIAR members and Center for Individual Resource Development, which is actually hosting today's conference virtually. So, again, once again, thank you, Manjula ji. So, before we actually run into the program today, the program says about pre and post. You know, pre and post, let's say pandemic in terms of learning and training. But if you, am I audible? If at all am I audible, please say yes. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir, you are very much audible.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, thank you so much. So I would request all of you to be very interactive. This session will be very interactive. And whenever there's an opportunity, thank you. Good morning, Vijay. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So let's make it very interactive. This particular session, and I think is very close to all of us. Those who are there as leaders, as teachers, as parents. And this particular session is very important because in the last 18 months, we have been into three types of atmosphere. Number one, pre-COVID. Number two, COVID. Number three, of course, just now limping back to post-COVID environment. If all of you introspect, look at ourselves, put your clock back and see, what we were 18 months ago, what we were during the last 18 months, and where are we today. It's important for us to have a clear assessment and analysis, then only probably will be able to, take certain leaps. I just want all of you to just think and put in the chat box, some of the things that we did pre-COVID as a teacher, as a leader, maybe in one phrase, put maybe one word, one phrase, pre-COVID. This is what I was doing as a teacher, as a leader, pre-COVID. So maybe just in the chat box, if you can, it could be a phrase, it could be a word, anything for that matter. Before the COVID has struck, we as a teachers, as leaders, running in our own style, that may be a very good style of functioning, maybe your own way of functioning, but then we just would like to know, how were you, pre-COVID? What was our mindset? How were we able to, enact? How were we able to execute our tasks? Could you still remember that pre-COVID, I was doing my job like this. I was in the class like this. My plan was like this. My understanding of the whole thing was like this. So any such thing is there, please put one or two words in a phrase or a small sentence, maybe a word. That would be able to, help me go a little further. So as we ran into the COVID, we started, figuring out. As so offline classes with a lot of personal interactions with students and staff, Mahaji says, absolutely. That is offline classes that went into COVID time. Definitely. Like a mother, loving and caring, touching and reaching out to every student, of course. Definitely, we were trying to reach every student during the COVID time. Because I just let us look at the pre and the COVID analysis first. As teachers, as leaders, then offline classes had a good scope. Bala Swati says, thank you for lab sessions. Offline classes had a good scope for lab sessions. That's one of the things. Fine. So if you can give me some time, let me share my. Just give me a minute, please. Can I share? Can I share my presentation?
Yes, sir, you can.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir,
Yes,
it
sir,
is
very much,
visible.
very
Okay,
much.
done. Thank you. So if you look at this sentence, Peterson says, all children can learn if conditions support. So the conditions in the pre-COVID, the conditions in the COVID times, and the present conditions, now what we call post-COVID conditions. This is one thing he says, but the other caveat is, if each individual capacities are valued, then as teachers and leaders, we need to understand, are we really valuing? There are very good soldiers, in the form of teachers, in the form of leaders, even in the form of parents during the COVID times. So if we value a teacher, value a child's learning style, learning abilities, and if you value the important stakeholder, the parent and the leader, then I think the conditions will definitely be very, very supportive to learning. That's what says. Now, as some of the participants shared, I think pre-COVID mindset, we had certain mindset. Of course, there were exceptions, maybe around a few schools, they always were ahead. Few teachers were always ahead of the times in the country, across the country. Hats off to them. Everyone was working, no one was less. But then, and I think I felt that this was our mindset. Number one, we always had the same curriculum for every student, the standard-based curriculum. It's a standard-based means the same curriculum for a third grade child, for a fifth grade child. Every child has to learn this and master that. That was one of the fundamental things pre-COVID line of thinking for the teachers, for the leaders, for even organizations, for the states, for the nation to come out with. Of course, it's not wrong, definitely. But then how standard-based curriculum can undergo changes may be a topic for discussion for educations in the country, number one. Number two, everyone, the schools, you agree with me? Do you agree with me that we always focused on grades? Yes or no? Just put on the grades means ranks, marks. Did we as teachers and schools focus on grades? Just put it in the chat box if possible, yes or no. Yes or no? Did we put, because our focus in the pre-COVID was grades, 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 marks, 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 exams, exams, exams. Probably this was, I think, one of the parameters. And the third point was, and we always, the schools, most of the schools actually, well, based on the parental requirements, we actually defined success in very, very narrow terms, because whereas we only appealed to the child's academic success only academic success, that too, even it is a little bit of narrow in most of the cases. In certain cases, it was very, very comprehensive, and that is beyond the academics. So the success, if at all, that has to be defined, it has to be defined taking into consideration holistic angles of learning. That's point number 3. And most importantly, schooling in India, across the states, we call it government, semi-government, and private, across the states, there is one challenge. The challenge is that, what you call, it's a learning, it's a storing and retrieving information during exams or recall or revision classes. So this has been the most uppermost thing, in schools edifies. The learning has to be done only when teaching is there. Storing, you need to store that knowledge, that information, and then retrieve that. This is important, there's no doubt about that, but this should not be the be and end of everything. This is definitely important to a certain extent, but a child in a school is expected to do far, far beyond this learning, this memorizing, this storing and retrieving for examinations. Number 3. Next one. The entire edifice of the structure of education was built around 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. Even today, schools say these things are fundamentally important. The child will have to read, will have to speak, will have to learn, will have to write, will have to do mathematics. So reading, writing, and mathematics. if they have their own importance today, yes or no? Yes, definitely they have their own importance. But now the schools will have to go beyond and beyond this 3R process. 3R will be part of the process, but not the only process. So there, I think we need to understand the distinction between 3R enabled education and also a comprehensive education in which 3R becomes a part, but not everything. And finally, in the pre-COVID mindset, we all had whole class teaching. Whoever teacher is there today, leader is there, let us ask one question to ourselves. If you were to be a student in a class, would you be convinced and satisfied if your teacher would teach the whole class, not you? I don't think you will be happy and convinced. If that lesson or that transaction, if that transaction of a lesson, unless and until you feel that it is for you, if the child feels that it is for him, then the child will be into that activity. So whole class teaching does not include every child. It does exclude a child. That's what the child feels. So today, all the teachers need to understand and need to come out of the pre-COVID type of learning, pre-COVID type of teaching. So the whole class teaching or the whole school or typical teaching probably will have to find new ways immediately. So these are, I think, some of the features that were actually overriding the pre-COVID mindset of ours. So from there, then from pre-COVID to COVID, there is, that is post-COVID, there's a big 17, 18 months of gap. What did that do? Always remember that this world has taught the human race many lessons, many tragedies, maybe in a family, in a community, in a nation, in a committee of nations, taught many new things, taught many new skills to survive and sustain the livelihood. That's very important thing. And though this COVID really has brought about a huge damage to the societies at large, to the nations at large, but I think something good that happened to one field is education. Something real good happened. Let us see what actually happened. Can you just put, is the chat box active or not?
Yes, sir, very much.
I am not able to see the chat box. Okay, fine. Yeah. Yeah, good, great. Thank you. So I just would like to see, as we ran into the COVID times, what do you think the changes that occurred to us, that happened in us, in our schools, in you as a leader, in you as a teacher? Can you please put it in the chat box? During the COVID time, there was a perceptible shift. What was the shift? What was the shift? Could you please put it in the chat box? According to you, one word, two words, one phrase. Technology know-how. What happened is the teacher started learning. Excellent command over technology. Mantrao says. Then Anita says, of course, more and more use of technology, skill and technology development. Then learned how to, I was able to teach few slow learners in my class. Balaswati says, great. So we became technology migrant. Yeah, I wasn't able to teach few slow learners in my class through AV mode, digital platform mastery. So now the teachers and leaders are talking about digital use, digital applications. And pre-COVID, the digital applications in the classroom context has been minimal, very, very minimalistic. So what has brought brought into adoption of new learning, Shanigarapu Vijay says, more usage of videos, Anita says, that's fine, thank you so much. So as we actually run into this COVID times, what actually happened was this, we'll see. One second, yeah. This COVID times education, what happened, we started reimagining education from pre-COVID to COVID. The first time the teacher started thinking, churning out himself or herself, how can I myself reach out to my child? A school, a leader. That is, I think, the important icebreaker to me and maybe to every one of you. Because I have seen my teachers take a plunge into technology exploration. How to use digital tools, from being digitally illiterate to digital native. There has been a huge, fascinating journey for every teacher, even for parents. So I think we all started reimagining teaching and learning after this pandemic has really struck. Once we did that, so the teachers went into adopting the technology, because you could never reach your child physically, nor the child would come to school. So what was left to us was actually to reach the child through some medium. The medium is there, but we are not literate, we are not so much literate of the medium. Then we started using that medium to the extent possible, even in Mufuzil rural countryside schools also. I think this to me is a big revelation, where skilling of the teacher, skilling of the child, skilling of the leader, even skilling of the parent has really happened during the COVID time. This is where I said the human race always learns when it is pushed to a corner. So this is where I think this is going to play a huge role, as AI is really, AI, robotics and other things are going to be major, part of our learning ecosystem. That's number two. So then came your blended learning. All of you know this term very well. I don't want to explain anything. How beautifully you actually, you started, your blended teaching. So learning can't be stopped by any disaster. Adoption of new learning, that's absolutely. So learning has to happen. And so this kind of technology adoption has been really a major source of inspiration for all of us, for all the schools. That's really a great thing. And how the teachers actually blended their teaching, their lesson plans, everything. There was a blending. Even the most important thing is how even assessments could be conducted at home, from home, how feedback is ascertained, how activities are given, how the children, are, given that kind of, tutoring through this platform. That was really amazing. And the teachers as being skilled within no time, I think was a big revelation for me. Then came the next one. Previously, even our schools were pedagogically not driven properly. We were only content-oriented schools. We were mostly content-oriented teachers, mostly. Not that pedagogy was not there, but pedagogy did not find its sufficient place. But with this pandemic, what happened is, to my surprise, did you not see that we integrated both technology and pedagogy? The teachers have done that. So to integrate technology and pedagogy and reach out to the child, to be away from the content alone, and I think that is absolutely fascinating. So when you really look at yourself as a teacher, see what is my technology component, what is my pedagogy component, what is my content component, what is the activity component. So once you look at all those things, what is the assessment component and what is the way forward component? So these have become real good things during the pandemic. Then comes I'll tell you, the teachers were very professional, who have understood the spirit of this blended learning. They actually made children learn in asynchronous mode. all of you understand by now what is synchronous and asynchronous. And when they learn something away from their online classes, they do some projects. You must have given a project to be done outside the synchronous class. They do outside, they consult people, they use resources, they collect so many samples. All the things were done asynchronously. So the children started enjoying. I have seen children started enjoying their asynchronous learning. But in case where a school was completely synchronous dependent in their teaching and learning, there the children were off the mark. So please mark my words, where the children were off the mark. So if the teacher was able to balance both synchronous and asynchronous learning, there the learning was really happening, participation was there, and then children were actively engaged. This is point number 3. And the next point is, in the teachers were able to collect the data, because the technology is giving you that kind of leverage to take data, personal data of every child, the performance, the feedback, the answering, everything, the activity. So the technology is giving the teacher a feedback, and then the teacher now for the first time is able to identify the personal learning scope of every child, and the teacher knows where. I think, have you, I want to ask the teachers, did you really see that or not in your classes? Could you figure out each child, doing what or not? Did you experience that? Could you please put it in the chat box? That you could find some kind of engagement, active engagement, that you're able to, have a record of personalized learning of every child. Were you looking at the whole class, looking at the whole single child? Whole class, definitely you look at it. But education does not end there. Education actually happens only when it happens at every child level. Could you see that in this technology mode or not? Just say yes or no. There was a great participation from every child. Yes. Sunita says yes. Vinita Shah says yes. Great. Okay. So you were able to do that, personalized. Please, teachers, remember that here afterwards, the mantra will be whether this learning is happening at the personal level of a child or not. That we are going to track in the post-COVID era. And then another important dimension to the whole thing was the parental. It's a new experience for children, and the teachers, she says, and Pankaj says yes, of course. You must have seen parents also becoming partners in technology use. And for the first time, even I have seen parents become real partners in the education of their children. And that inclusiveness is good for education, is good for children, is good for schools. And I think if whoever teacher is, leader is there today, kindly allow that to continue. Let each parent become a real partner in the education of the child. Then the school will grow, not only in size, in quality, and in everything. So this is another relation. Finally, and the most important part of COVID times is that for the first time, I have seen the teachers unlearn from the pre-COVID days. They started unlearning and they came to new kind of learning. They accepted that. So that was a huge paradigm shift. Once they accepted, yeah, there was a big inclusiveness has been a big revolution, Hanumantrao says. And then when that acceptance was there, they started unlearning. So pre-COVID ways of teaching learning, this was not good. Then the teachers stopped doing that. And then there is a relearn where you started connecting to technology, pedagogy integration, and the reaching out to the child. through technology, including assessments, formative assessment. Because previously we were only summative assessment dependent organizations. With this technology and pedagogy and blended learning, the important part is that we have become a formative assessment dependent discourse. That is the most important thing. Dear friends, please look into this, that it has to be formatively assessed continuously, summative of course, that goes at the end of the year. Then comes to this, Sriramurthy says yes, Pankaj says yes. Finally, I just want to go, before you go to the COVID, post-COVID, I just want to know, as you traverse from pre-COVID to COVID to post-COVID, what changes, are you able to see in yourself? What changes? Could you please share what changes are you able to see in the post-COVID? Now you have three pictures. One is pre-COVID picture, one is COVID picture, one is now post-COVID, and you are there in every field, in every time zone. Now you are going to be in a bigger time zone, where what you are going to do matters most to the learning of the child, to the learning profile of the child. That's more important. I just would like to, just look at it, what actually, how right now you feel as a teacher, as a leader, maybe as a parent, in the post-COVID. Let's pray to God that we call it post-COVID, that COVID disappears and that we are out of the pandemic times. So students' active participation will be continued. Yes, of course. Any other contributions, please? Emotional confidence. I'm able to make students responsible for what they learned in classes. Fine. Shrika, emotional confidence development happened, of course. Any other points, please? I feel very empowered. Nirmala Thakur says, I feel very empowered. Great. Students' concentration level will be more. You feel that that's more important thing. The concentration, the focus part is more from the student side, of course. Great. Now, with this, let's come to this. 1 second. Yeah, post-COVID learners will see this. Yeah. Now, in the post-COVID learner, you must have noticed, look at these 4-5 points. You must have noticed a lot of learning gaps in core competencies like mathematics, sciences, of course, maybe 1 or 2 languages. So as a teacher, as a leader, when you identify, because children are coming from their online lessons, blended lessons, they're coming to the schools, they missed a lot of, units, maybe a couple of months, maybe about 6 months. They may not have taken part in a very constructive, active manner. So as a result, you must have seen, have you seen some, what you call, have you seen some of the gaps in the, what are the gaps you have seen in the children? Could you please put it in the chat box? What gaps could you see in the children? What gaps? There must have been a lot of gaps you must have been experiencing in the children, observing in the children. It could be anything. It could be academics, not attentive. Pankaj says not attentive. Behavioral issues are there, Prashant says. Vinitra says learning gap is there, of course. And concentration challenges, science subjects missed lab sessions. They, of course, they missed lab sessions. And okay, thank you. When you find out that there is a gap, and I think it's a primary responsibility to ensure that the children come out of the gap of these things. So what is suggested is school response, how to remedy the learning loss. So let each teacher, each child have a plan of action. Maybe a 15-day plan, maybe a 20-day plan, maybe a 30-day plan, depending on the need-based remedial plan of action, which is not cumbersome, which is actually very inviting and welcoming, so that these learning gaps are overcome. So at our own school levels, let us talk to the teachers, leaders, and come out with some kind of thing so that children get connected to post-COVID learning without much of a challenge. Point number one. Point number two, subdued and inhibitive responses. You must have seen the children back in the schools. They're not that active. They're not responding. They're very silent. Their real vigor is lost to a certain extent, if not in all, in some of the children. Suppose you are a psychologist, you will observe many things in the children. In such cases, where there are subdued and inhibitive responses, then as a teacher, how do you create opportunities for the children to figure out, to speak out, to explain, to communicate? Once this starts happening, the children will come out of the shyness, of fear, stress, or tension, or anxiety disorder, whatever it is. So as a teacher and leader, I request all of you to look at creating opportunities for the children who are very inhibitive in nature and subdued in their responses. Point number two. Point number three, also, we could see a lot of challenges, emotional, psychic, relational challenges. Relational challenges must have developed at home, or they have missed their friends in the school, and probably there also that gap was there. And then most importantly, that psychic, that stress factor, anxiety disorder factor, there are some other kinds of, psychic issues that have happened to our children, even to adults, even to teachers. And emotional imbalancing also happened. So when those things, if you notice in the children, did you notice those things? Group work and pair work is missing, of course, definitely that was missing. So when these things, if the child's emotional quotient is missing, if the child's psychology, there's something needs to be done. And if the child's relationship, has got relationship issues, immediately we need to identify. Let us not concentrate on academics first. Let us immediately try to make amends and then start making connections. You can make connections through various, things. As a teacher, creative teacher, you can do that. First, address these challenges, please. These challenges to be addressed, and without that, I don't think any strong academic program will prove to be really very utilitarian nature. Number four. And also, you must have seen children, they're not able to apply their, what you call their gross motor skills, this kinesthetics. Sometimes children, they're falling down, they're not able to walk on the corridors properly in the classes, they're not looking at the steps properly. So the kind of, the psychic kinesthetic connect, the proprioceptive connected, there are some challenges. Sometimes they don't know, while crossing the road also they're struggling, they're not able to see here and there because they were confined to their homes endlessly. There are certain proprioceptive kinesthetic challenges. So as teachers and leaders, let us give the children a chance to, apply their, what you call their kinesthetic energy connected to psychic energy and then emotional energy. These three energies are properly connected and displayed by the child, then the problem ceases to exist. And the last one is, so the children's communication, intra-communication, interpersonal communication, this also was badly hit in most of the children because they lost their that camaraderie, they lost that social connect in the schools. They had their friendship was not there. So because of that, they are not able to figure out. So my suggestion is that in our daily routine, let's give the children a chance to develop, in the intrapersonality and their interpersonal skills. That's a very important thing. So you understand very well what is intrapersonality mechanism and what is interpersonal personality mechanism. So these things, I think, will definitely be able to, make the children ready for their post-COVID learning fields. And having done this, Yeah. Then how to really move ahead? We need to now move ahead. So moving ahead also is very important. How need of course physical exercise. Srilata says they need physical exercises. Definitely physical exercises in a proper order actually. So once the integration of body, integration of mind, and integration of emotion of heart that is there, then I think children are back to school in a normal posture. Right now that integration is missing to some extent in most of the children. This has to be observed, analyzed, and then proper activities need to be streamrolled into the organization. So then how to go as we go into post-COVID teaching learning mechanism, as that spectrum is now going to happen now with I don't think there will be any further closure of the schools. Schools will be open, and then the learning will have to happen in such an instance. What is that that we are looking at it now? It is time for disruption of education. Can you please tell me, according to you, what do you mean by disruption of education? Just maybe Ravindra says activities. What do you mean by disruption of education? How do you understand this? Thank you, Tiwari. So what do you mean by disruption of education? This word is commonly used. Disruption in the industry, disruption in many things. So the disruption is when you actually now are trying to establish a new phenomena from the existing one, a complete new phenomena from the existing one, which can bring about a revolutionary changes. That is called a disruption. Now, all the teachers and leaders of schools across the country are now in for disruption of education. Now, because technology, they are capable of using it. Pedagogy, they are using it properly. Assessments, you are doing analytically, and many things are happening. Project-based learning, they are able to do properly, and holistic perspective of education is really happening. So therefore, that disruption of education, so let us not go back to again only teaching, only remembering, only recalling, only examination. That will not go, but that will not be the only thing. So let us go for that kind of disruption. Then personalize. The second point is also important. As a teachers, I would request you to see how you can figure out this technology in terms of attributing to the personalized use. How each child can be bracketed into that technology with regard to apps, with learning, with feedbacks, with profiling, whatever it is. So how, because it's important for a teacher to look at the features of technology. There are huge n number of technological features are there, and what can be used in a context is I think is the spirit of education. So that part now schools which are going to survive, thrive, the teachers who are going to continue and who may not lose their jobs, who will continue, are those teachers who actually understand technology and use it to the extent possible appropriately. Then of course, I don't want to spend much time on hybrid instruction. Nowadays, part-time, it's online come offline teaching happens. We had only online and blended. Now it's online come offline. Some children come to your offline classes, some children at online. So you need to run a hybrid model of instruction for some more days till it's 100%. Even then, that blended and hybrid model will also continue to happen. Let us be prepared for that and make our resources ready. Then let institutions go. When we go think of disruption, we will go beyond 3 Rs in our schools. Reading, writing, arithmetic, mathematics will be there. But beyond that, how to go beyond? How do you design? How do you fathom that beyond 3 Rs of education for a child in our own schools? It requires a lot of discussion, brainstorming, a lot of reflections that will take the institution forward beyond 3 Rs. It is, the scope is very much possible, and many schools are doing it. Everyone can do that. And it is the need of the hour. And the technology, there are three types of users are there, dear friends. When you say technology, there are three types. Number one, who use passively. The teacher gives some kind of a thing. You open this app, do this, done. Or you do this questionnaire, done. You do this quiz, done. This is a passive use of technology. And the second point is intelligent users. These intelligent users are, they go beyond the teacher's instructions. Beyond. Sometimes they may browse certain things, and they actually, whatever they require, they use it. They are very intelligent, very, very intelligent, smart users of the net. This is point number two. And point number three, the third person, the third category is they produce, teachers teach to produce technology. And the students who are capable of producing technology at school level must be allowed to produce. So intelligent users and teaching to produce technology are again the symptoms of disruption. That's very important thing. And finally, as teachers and schools, let us again not stress only on teaching. If we teach the children to love to learn, if what they learn, if they love it, and if you teach how to love to learn, then I think as a teacher, you are doing your bit brilliantly. That has to be done. Today, the problem is the children do not love what they are learning. So how do you create that love component, that engagement component, that sensorial connect component, that exploration component, that putting self into that context component, that connecting to the community component? Once you do that, then I think you are teaching, not only teaching content to the child, but you are actually teaching the child how to love to learn. Moving forward, now just look at this slide. I think we probably 12:45 they said, within another 5 to 7 minutes we'll close it, then we'll take a couple of questions. Now, today, as a teacher, as a leader, me, anyone, we need to think in schools this way. If the thinking is going to be the central point, then thinking cannot be relegated to one domain or discipline, because in each discipline you will find multidisciplinarity. In math, you will find science. In science, you will find literature. In literature, you will find history. In history, you will find geography. In geography, you'll find music. Then, of course, craft, painting, and everything. So now, the post-COVID, the disruption of education, what we call it, if your child, you, me, if we don't think in our staff rooms, in our meetings, organically like this, like you think scientifically, musically, historically, mathematically, ethically, and of course, artistically, then I think we'll be taking each discipline in isolation. Always please remember that everywhere that suppose you go to a doctor, a general medicine is supposed to know other branches of medicine to a certain extent. For a child, when he goes out to a market, he should be able to connect the market to his economics, to the geography, to science, to literature, to language, to mathematics. That's how it is. So that is going to be a revolution, friends. That is going to be disruption. It's, of course, thinking about, for example, if the child is learning grammar in English, just imagine if the child learn the same grammar in English, Telugu, and Hindi, all the three languages together at a time. So why should you plan separately? Is it necessary? It is not. You suppose the child has to learn comprehension, composition, discourses. The child has to learn creative writing. The child has to learn poetry, poem making. All the things can be done, by using multilingual, multilingually. That's a very important thing. So let there be this new perception around ourselves, among ourselves. And when we start doing this in our leadership conferences, in our among teachers, finally it will percolate down to the students, and from students it will go to the parents. Then the whole school will be transformed in the post-COVID area. Now, come to the last, I think this thing I'll be now ensure. These are the three words that are being talked about normally. What is quality? What is equity? What is reach? Quality, we all understand. Quality, we all understand. Thank you, Anmantra. Quality, we all understand. Quality, who will decide quality? Board will decide, government will decide, school will decide, parent will decide, community will decide. That is a very important question. I think to me, what is quality is if the child is able to comprehensively engage in a meaningful learning exercise, putting self into the context, going to the community for exploration, and connecting all disciplines, and then enjoy every process and activity. I think to me, that is the quality. That is the quality. That's very important. So whether that quality is to be maintained in the schools, and I think governments are right, community is right, parents are right, schools are right, nobody is wrong, students are right. But only the thing that how can it be translated into action? So look at that quality. If your child in the classroom is very, very happily engaged, learning does auto happen. If the learning is not happening, it means that there is no kind of quality, kind of reach, kind of a thing. So kindly look at that. Number two, equity in this country is also misunderstood. What is equity? That all children must be taught equally. It is taught like that. It is impossible, because all of you know that. Do you think all the children are the same? Just yes or no. Yes or no, one word, yes or no. All the children are same? No, no. Sunita says no, Ravindra says no. All the children are not the same. Children are different. They are different, definitely. So, but then what does equity mean? Kranti says no. What does equity mean? So equity means, for example, can anyone put Najesh? No. Can anyone put what actually equity means in that case? Every child is unique, Nirmala says, of course. Swapna says no. So then how shall we define equity in the context of our own schools? How shall we define? Any idea? Just you can hazard a guess. There's nothing to lose, because education is what, how it really happens. The equity according inclusive learning, of course, inclusive learning, Sunita says. Thank you. Great. So equity is, for example, now this group is there. There are, I think, I don't know how many people are attending. If the equity means, to me, if to my capacity, little bit, beyond my capacity, I am able to get resources, I am able to get activity, I am able to get my material, I am able to get my, project, which I am able to think little puzzle-like thing, little critical, but I can do when I put real effort, then that is called equity. So another child cannot attempt a critical problem. If you give that critical problem to that child, he won't be able to do that. So if you give to that assessment, that assignment, what he is capable of, a little beyond, that is called equity. And in India, it is most oftenly misunderstood that equity means all children must be treated, taught, or they should learn equally. So that misnomer has to go. So they understand as per their limits. That's great. And finally, reach. Reach is what? Can anyone of you just what do you mean by reach? So we're closing in the last 2-3 minutes. Reach. What do you mean by reach? Yeah. Okay. Reaching every individual child. Yes, you reach every individual child the way the child is. You can't imagine that the child should be like this. Accept the child as he is or she is, and then try to reach the child so that so that when you reach him through the programs of equity, and then quality will automatically happen. So these three are interdependent and interrelated. Now, before that, it's very important to understand this statement. So that is true. The pandemic was a disaster. It has uprooted families, communities, and nations. But one good thing has happened in education. We all rose to the occasion, changed our mindsets, learned how to integrate technology, embraced new pedagogies, and skilled ourselves. What a journey it has been. Students, teachers, school leaders, and of course, parents have found themselves together on a common purpose. Today, we are ready to live our not so useful experiences and connect ourselves to the emerging trends in teaching and learning, leadership, and parenting. Let's build on what we have learned and continue to add multidimensionality to our repertoire of learning. Each child can explore to learn, make connections to the self, community, and values and other disciplines. Let's think and make every child think smart and ensure creativity flows, skills are built, quality, equity, and reach are ensured in the classrooms, workstations, corridors of our schools, and in the natural world. Come, let's contribute to upgrade ourselves, our schools, and be an important game changer in the national educational policy era. So finally, I thank the Center for Individual Resource Department and all the participants today for being very, very participative. Thank you so much. So let's join hands to be partners in disruption. Let a new teacher come out of every person, and let every child thrive. Let education in India transform, and let that disruption become a reality. Thank you. God bless you all.
IDEA is Individual Resource Development International. It is a complete journey offered to the students to be prepared to lead a progressive life. This initiative is an effort by the like-minded professionals who have learned about life by their own experiences and by eventually realizing what seeds could have been sown to do better in life. We at IDEA Studio want to be the torchbearer in assisting the self-development of a child and help young minds see clear and a confident path to tread on. We want children, especially the ones in their teenage, to be well-groomed, independent, and judicious from an early stage in their lives. Yes, the program is primarily for the young, but there's a difference. The difference here is parent or adult participation and collaboration. Adults become the medium here. That is predominantly what our role is, right? To begin with, we make the children go through a series of tests while offering career guidance and counseling to them. These tests will be based on a combination of multiple intelligence theory, aptitude, and personality. These will help us determine not only the aptitude of a child based on his or her personality, but also their primary and secondary intelligences. Therefore, allowing us to give them a very clear and effective counseling as well as guide them to choose the right career paths. However, that is not what we stop at. We shall also be focusing on their grooming and confidence building. There are three programs which we have designed with the assistance of experts from around the world. We call them the Aram, Praram, and Parichay. Aram is for classes 5, 6, and 7, focusing on life skills, mind frame, knowledge quotient, interest, and hobbies. We believe this as the foundation for students to be better prepared as they have almost entered the adolescent phase or are about to. Next is Praram. Aram is the beginning and Praram is about being focused. This program is for the 8th, 9th, 10th standard students who have the desire to do something or are dealing with inner conflict which does not allow them to grow mentally, physically, emotionally, and socially. They only follow, which at this stage could seem to be true, but is only temporary and could actually affect the future, which is a very long, responsible, and a challenging phase. Let me help you understand this through numbers. Childhood is 0 to 10 years. Teenage phase is 11 to 19 years. Youth is 20 to 25. Human lifespan in a normal condition is at least 60 years. If we deduct the first 25 years as adults, the child needs to drive the next 35 years. Childhood was love, care, and guidance. Teenage was excess attention, love, peer pressure. Youth was love, expectations, and compulsions. All the three stages reflect concern and cooperation, but adulthood is responsibilities and independence, which many a times brings in fear, which compels us to be less experimental, lack the guts, and we become followers. So Prarabdha provides the foundation to build the potential through individual capacity and emotional stability. Parichaya is the last leg of program, where it is all about focus, setting goals, being enterprising, being human, being realistic, and connected to people, place, and emotions. As I mentioned before, these programs are realistic and might not be ideal. Realistic for it caters individuals. Every enrolled student will be cajoled, will be encouraged, and walk through along with the assigned counselors, along with their parents. Every dream is individual, and so is every individual. So, how can we offer a standardized program to one and all? There is no one shoe that fits all. We have to go by the child and their personalities. Standardization could be possible in offering academic information, training into vocational subjects, pursuing hobbies, etc. We will work on the individuality of a child through this program. It's like science is a subject, while scientist is the inventor. It's like dancing is learning steps. The performance is individual expression, the choreography, and the interpretation. In a factory, a product is manufactured but sold through innovative ideas. This interpretation, innovation, and experimenting is what we will help children explore and also learn during their journey with us at IRDI Studio. Thank you. On behalf of all of us at Team IRDI, I thank you all. Do visit us at www.irdistudio.com. We encourage you subscribe to our channel and keep liking the videos and share your comments and thoughts in the comment section. Thank you.